Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Dental Momentum podcast powered by Duckett Ladd Dental CPAs and Advisors. Jared Duckett back at you with my business partner, Bill Ladd. Bill, I'm excited about this one, man. I mean, I'm excited about all our podcast episodes we do, but these two gentlemen we've met recently are very knowledgeable, first off, in the line that they're in, but just fun to talk to, just good people. And kind of just talk real quick, Bill. I mean, we're big Dr. Paul Goodman, Dental Nacho, fans, and he's always talking about ABC, right? Always be connecting.
Yeah.
And, got connected up with these guys working in the disability, insurance industry. And, I've always thought in my mind when I'm talking to clients, hey, you got disability insurance, it's check the box deal. Hey, you got it, and going down the road. But after talking to these guys and really what we're going to talk about today is it's not just that simple, right, Bill?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of my favorite parts of that connection, Jared, is that you think you understand something and then you actually talk to people who truly understand it and you realize you have no idea what the hell you're talking about. So you're kind of back to drawing board, right? And I think they really opened our eyes to something that could be a huge blind spot. And it's allowed us the opportunity to start engaging in dialogue with our clients to see, if we might be able to send them these guys' ways, because, when you start talking about disability insurance, what we're finding out is that's just kind of something that happens way back in dental school, perhaps early on in your career. And then you just don't ever thinking about it again. And what we've come to learn talking to these guys is that could be a huge mistake. So I think this is going to be a great one. Something that a lot of people probably just don't know much about. So excited to hear what they have to say.
No pressure, guys. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, first off, you're probably asking, who are these guys? So these guys right here are, we got Tyler DeStefano and Jim Cashmar with Doctors Disability Specialists. So guys, appreciate you guys joining us.
Thanks for being here. We're happy to be here, rather. Thanks for having us.
Our pleasure.
Well, Tyler, just real quick, why don't you just kind of unpack, just tell our listeners exactly what you guys do about your business and how you help dentists?
Yeah, so just to go back to the beginning, so I started this practice in 2007, did it as a startup with 0 clients. And I remember I thought it would be like the movies where I would get to my office and the phones would be ringing off the hook and I'd have 3 or 4 computer monitors and people would be yelling. And that's what I thought this business was going to be like. And it was the furthest thing from the truth. I had 0 clients and it was hard, and frankly,
there was yelling though, wasn't there?
There was maybe yelling. But not much different than starting a dental practice from scratch. You have 0 patients and you're like, gotta go find them, or they have to find you. And it started as a general practice where I would work with anybody that I could get a meeting with. I would take a meeting with this chair if I could. And I never thought I'd be in dentistry at all. And in 2008, by chance, I started working with a few students, some faculty members, and just accidentally fell in love with dentistry and decided to commit to it and specialize. And from that point forward, every client we have as a dentist, it's all we do. Disability insurance is really what we're known for out there, and I think what we're great at. And we have clients in every single state, literally thousands of dentists. And I think we're lucky. We built a nice community. We work really hard on our reputation, and we work really hard to help our clients. And we got a long way to go. We're just getting warmed up.
Yeah. So hit on. I mean, you said you just kind of fell into dentistry, and you loved it. What is it about dentists specifically that just made you go deep in that industry?
Well, I think what happens in our business is it's hard if you're working with all sorts of different people and the fact patterns are all different. You're working with business owners and employees and that's traditionally how our business is you work with everybody. And the challenge is it's tough to become good at any of those things because you're always being dealt a different hand. So what I realized in dentistry is like, all right, this fact pattern is the same as that one, and then that one. And all of a sudden I'm having the same conversation 10 times a day. And what happened is, just like playing guitar, I see your guitar in the background. If you play guitar every single day, all day long for 10 hours, it would be insane if you didn't become great at it, right? And the same as what I found here is because we're talking with 10 dentists a day for 13 years in a row now, we understand their opportunities, their threats before they even know about it. And as a result, our reputation now precedes us and built an amazing practice.
It's funny you say that because that was something that took us a long time, Tyler, to really understand in our business. We were that generalist is what we would call it, where we would deal with a contractor, an architect, a attorney, and then a dentist, and, just all across the board. And we were pulling our hair out because, we were almost having to put on a different hat every single client and think through a different type of industry. And once you dial in and really focus on that one industry, I think you realize how much more impactful you can be, how much easier it is to help people, to kind of find those trends and things. And so I think that's a great starting point, is to really look for somebody that understands your industry, whether an accountant, attorney, insurance, whatever the case may be, that truly understands your industry and the challenges that it's facing.
Agree.
Yeah. So hit on Jim. We'll kind of throw it to you a little bit. Is hit on, exactly, like I said at the beginning, most dentists, if you will, are kind of like, I'm going to say, check the box. Like I've got disability insurance. Most of them, let's say you got a dentist coming out of school, 1-2 years as an associate, and they're going to buy a practice. Well, yeah, that's a bank requirement, right? That bank's going to require them to have that disability insurance. But what does that dentist need to know that maybe it's just not, yes, you have to have it, but, and Tyler, this might be for you too, but like, what are the details that you need to make sure are in your disability insurance that maybe dentists don't know about?
I can give the beginning part of the answer anyway. When you have an individual disability insurance policy as a general dentist, non-owner, maybe soon to be owner, you're protecting yourself and your family if you get hurt or sick and can't work. That's protecting your paycheck. That's protecting your income. That's protecting your future. If and when you decide to buy a practice, those same dollars can be used by the bank. The bank doesn't care, how you kind of check that box, so to speak. The problem is, if you do have that family and you want that money to come to you and protect yourself, you probably want to also have a special kind of policy that practice owners have, and that's an overhead expense policy. So maybe Tyler, you want to go into a little bit more on that?
I just want to underscore one of the things that you said, which is hurt or sick. And I think when most people hear the word disability, there's a certain imagery that comes to mind, like if any of your dentists listening to this, if they said, oh, you have a disabled patient coming in today, in their mind, there's going to be something that they think that person might look like. It might be special parking spot, wheelchair bound. As people, when we hear the word disability, that's maybe what comes to mind. But with dentists, that's the furthest thing from the truth. It's not always a mortality issue. It could be something as innocent as their finger or their wrist, and they look otherwise healthy. Their friends don't see them as disabled, but their contract language is really what matters. These things are nothing more than words, commas, and paragraphs. It's a 30-page document, it's a promise. And I think that's what Jim was alluding to, is those words do matter.
So when you look at what a typical dentist might look at, guys, and you think through, and Jared, you and I have been there as a business owner, we get insurance documents, our eyes are going to glaze over, right? I mean, it all kind of runs together, and yeah, on the surface, it sounds good, seems right. So can you kind of give us ideas or examples of where sometimes where the commas and paragraphs do matter, or where it could have mattered, or could have been extremely detrimental to a practice owner if they had not had an opportunity to have somebody who knows that language take a look at it?
So let me answer your question this way. Imagine if I said to you, I have this really great disability policy I found from you. It's great, but the company can cancel you whenever they want. They can change the cost whenever they want. They can change the words whenever they want too, but it's really, really great. You'd be like, you're nuts. That sounds horrible. Why would I want a contract when they can cancel me anytime or change my cost or the words? That's what a lot of contracts are worded. There's a lot of these contracts that are worded very much one way and entirely in the favor of the carrier. So little things like that, it's not that it's complicated, it's just not common sense either, that if you don't read thousands of these things, they're going to miss it. And a lot of people instinctively, what we see is they go to their friends or their family to do their disability. Maybe some of them did their parents' auto insurance. And I'm telling you right now, it doesn't make that broker bad. It doesn't make them unethical. It just makes them uneducated in the space. And it's easy to make a mistake and not even know it. And our clients could potentially be the beneficiary of that mistake. So that's just one example, is the words should be such that if they get it when they're 30, when they're 40, 50, 60, there's no changes unless they wanted them. The company can't make any changes.
Yeah, so I think a reasonable question or a thought somebody may have in their head is okay, so I go to my cousin who sells insurance and he gets me a policy and it's probably boilerplate to what they get from corporate or wherever. And it comes back, and let's say that that wording's not right. What, in a lot of people's minds, they probably are wondering, well, what recourse do I have? It kind of is what it is. I mean, this is how their policy reads. What can I do about that? So in those kind of situations, what can a dentist do if they are looking at signing a policy that's just badly written for them?
Well, hopefully they're healthy. So if they're healthy, they have options. They can go into the market, and there's still 3, 4, 5, 6 companies that still do this well in dentistry.
Yeah.
There's not 100 choices. There's very few companies left that still understand the actuaries behind it and how to write it. Now it's going to cost more. Instead of being $100 a month for a lousy contract, it might be $200 or $300 a month for a great one. And at the end of the day, this stuff, it's not cheap. And the reason it's not cheap is because they use it. It happens often. And that's hopefully one of the bigger takeaways is sometimes in life we head down these paths of options, and it's easy in our own mind to justify saving a little bit here. And many things that we do in life, you get a second chance. Like if you buy a cheap shovel and it breaks, stinks, I'm gonna go buy a new shovel. I bought the cheaper lawnmower. Oh, what a mistake that was, it breaks. I'll just go get a new one. With disability, by the time you find out it's not working, it's probably too late. Unless you stumble across us and we can read it ahead of time and you're still young and healthy, or anybody else in our space that understands it, then you can do something about it.
That's a great example. I mean, I like how you use that. Like if you're a dentist out there right now that owns a practice and you're thinking and you're listening to this and you're like, oh man, well, I don't even remember what my disability insurance policy really looks like, to be honest. How do you guys help existing practice owners with a policy they already have in place? How can you assist them analyzing it? How's that work?
I can take this one, Ty. So we just, when we first engage, we have a meeting. We might be referred by someone like you or another fellow dentist, and we simply have them send us their current contract. We read it before our meeting. We highlight the words that are important and go through the whole thing. But ultimately, it's pointing out the things, and we're very neutral on it.
Clinical.
It's clinical. It's either in their favor or not in their favor. And we point those things out. And then ultimately, if it comes down to a position where they might want to consider going to the market, we can help them do that.
And so I think that would be the next question is, once you have an insurance policy and you've had it for years and you guys look at it and say, man, this is not in your favor. And you may be fine with that, but please understand there's risk associated with that. And they say, hey, well, what are my options? At that point, you can take it out and start shopping, for a new policy at that point. Is it as simple as that, guys, or is there any complexities to it?
The only thing I would add to that is it's going to feel like a big medical audition in a way. Like normally, if you want something, you just go buy it, right? Whether it's a cup of coffee or a new guitar, you go take care of it, and if you afford it, you buy it. But disability, a good contract, it's almost like they want to think about you more than you want to think about them, because in theory, you could be running relatively small checks for a long time, and they could be writing huge ones.
Yeah.
So they definitely want to do their diligence. And the result, though, is people that are young and healthy, you can get really superior pricing and contract language. If somebody put this off too long and they're older or they're unhealthy, it's not, I'm going to use the word, not right, but they just can't get it, and why would it, if you have 2 broken wrists and a bad back, why would a company insure you? That's like terminal risk. It would be insane. The key here is to not put it off, and get it done as soon as you can properly.
So you kind of mentioned it at the beginning, or just a second ago, that, some common things you see would be, they have the ability to cancel it at any time or change. What are some other things that you typically see in I'm going to say, poorly written policies?
So, what does the word disability mean? Think of it that way. Unlike life and death, it almost doesn't need a definition, right? For life insurance. Like if somebody was to die, we can all very quickly agree what it means to be dead. Disability is the opposite. It's very contentious. It's subjective. Disability could mean a lot of different things. So that 1 or 2 sentences that's defining, in this contract, here's what disability means, that matters. So for example, what we don't want to see is something that would say, you are disabled if you can't do any job at all out there. So something happens in your hand and you can't be a dentist. A contract might be like, hey, hate to bum you out, but your claim's denied. Sorry, you can't be a dentist, but we think you could do something else. We don't want to see the word any job in there. or any occupation. It should be specific to what they're doing.
And these are examples that you've seen where they've been so restrictive that it could cause to some problems that people aren't even thinking about.
It's appealing. Like, it's appealing because what happens is you go in the market and they say, oh, this disability is $50 a month. I got a great deal. I got to my buddies, like they're paying $200 or $300. I got mine for $50. That is appealing, right? The challenge is, and the problem and the disadvantage to the dentist is they don't necessarily know why it's cheaper.
Yeah.
They just think they got a good deal. And that's another big takeaway, is that whenever disability is cheaper, it's not that they're being nice or you got a better deal. It typically means that actuarially something has been watered down in the contract language to make it cost less.
Yeah. The house always wins in those kind of situations.
Yeah.
So you're saying maybe bragging to your buddy at the bar that you got the cheapest policy on a monthly basis might not be the best thing for you, right?
Yeah, especially if your buddy knows what they're talking about. They're like, dude, I hate, that's great, but
a few more considerations, you guys, include it varies from state to state how much this might cost. Tyler and I are brokers for disability insurance. We represent many companies, and we don't get any special, rates or deals. There is, no such thing. What really I think separates us or makes us special is our knowledge, our experience, and then also our connections, like with guys like you. But when somebody goes and says, "Oh, I can get you this, special deal," it's not necessarily in the favor of the person. They really want to work with someone who has experience like we do.
One thing you said earlier that I thought was really interesting is talking about, as you progress in your career, the ability probably to get those favorable terms diminishes. So going back and knowing kind of what you're doing, Jim, with your outreach to dental schools, I mean, when is that right time for somebody to really try to dial in, lock down a great policy and kind of
if
move
you are rising D3 to D4 or after, the time is literally today. Like, reach out to an experienced dentist specific disability insurance broker like me and Tyler. So when you rise from D3 to D4 is when you can start the process and start applying and getting policies, in place. We typically start with a very small, we call them starter policies, very low cost, but with the ability to grow into it as you grow, in your career. But if you're, out of school for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and you haven't got disability insurance, we can still help. We do help. We get tons of clients that are, experienced dentists, let's say.
Yeah, and specialists as well, not just general dentistry, but specialist, orthos, etc.
Yeah, all the specialties, absolutely. Some more than others just because there's more of them. We have way more general dentists just because there happens to be a lot more.
Yeah.
But the advice really isn't any different.
Yeah, kind of real quick, we hit on it a while ago a little bit, but that overhead policy, that overhead policy that you can have in place for a dental practice owner. Can you unpack that just a little bit? Like, what is that? What kind of sets it apart? What does it do?
Yeah, let's use endo for an example. So like an endodontist where there's no hygiene revenue to count on, and let's say there's no associates, that's just them, a nice $800,000 million practice. They're doing all the endo. If they're disabled, what happens to their revenue? It comes to a halt. It's zero.
Yeah.
Maybe some receivables coming in, dribbling in, but it comes to a halt. But what happens to their loan payment? That doesn't. Their rent does not. Their staff wages do not. Maybe some variable costs like consumables and other things, go away. But the point is, what happens, right? And then they're in a position where they're pulling 20, 30, 40,000 a month out of their personal checking account to make capital contributions to the business to pay the bills, and then pay themselves back maybe down the road. But regardless of what liquidity something has, that's going to get old fast. So that's the point of overhead disability. Many banks require it so that, many, even in a general practice, if they're disabled, hygiene revenue typically will not cover all the bills. It'll cover maybe a chunk, but not all of them. So there should be overhead disability, which kicks in to pay 10, 20, 50,000 a month, whatever amount is appropriate, to give that doctor time to do one of three things: get healthy and get back, ideally. 2, find a suitable associate that can produce at their level, which, by the way, depending on where you are in the time of year, that's not easy, especially in the specialties. Finding a general dentist associate is not easy for anybody that's been through it. And 3rd, sell and transition the practice if you're not going to get better. And I think, 12 months is probably enough time for one of those 3 things to happen within reason.
It's interesting with COVID happening and people who thought they were bulletproof your model can be turned upside down on a dime. And, what you guys deal with is stuff that's happened to dentists. You probably have seen horror stories that you wish you could help, but at that point the die was cast and your people are kind of stuck. So, right now, would you say is a good time for them to evaluate, their disability, their overhead, if they've never heard of it or if they don't have it, to explore those options and start seeing, because it can happen?
I'll tell you, 13 years later, it was like in the first couple of years, it's like, all right, we haven't had any claims. All right, year 3, still no claims. And actually, there shouldn't have been, because these people had just gone through underwriting, they were healthy. 13 years later, it's like every month something's happening.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, it's sad that people are going through some bad stuff. But from our point of view, it's a good feeling to know that we did a good job. We can be the only one in their financial life or life in general to say, look, financially, everything's gonna be fine. We planned for this. Focus on your health, focus on your family, and get healthy again. But don't worry about the money. We can fix that. And that's meaningful. We're not selling widgets or replacement windows or vinyl, like, not that there's anything wrong with that, but these things change people's lives in a good way. And alternatively, in a bad way if they didn't do the planning.
For sure.
Many things are irrecoverable, and it leads to other things. Like, they don't get better because they're so worried about their health and the money. They try to come back too soon, and they're stunting their recovery, or maybe that's creating conflict at home with marriages and all these. There's ripple effects. All over $200 or $300 a month.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it right.
So. Yeah. So this might be a silly question, but a lot of dental practice owners, do they not have that overhead component in place? I mean, is that common that they do not have it in place?
It's common that they do not. Yeah, it's not common knowledge. Personal disability is common.
Sure.
For the ones that don't have it, they at least know they should.
Yeah.
And they convince themselves that they shouldn't. But they know it's out there. Overhead, it's not common knowledge at all. Easily missed.
And if we just look around our own networks and communities, there's so many stories about a dentist that closed up shop, or because they were disabled, or they had, they had a heart attack, or whatever it is. And so we just hear stories regularly, and we have people that we know through our networks that have gone through this. Some of them we've helped, and they're okay. Others haven't. And that's when you hear about, the practice for sale and a fire sale. And that's where you guys come in again, where you have to do the valuation and the value goes down pretty quickly.
Yeah. See, connecting with you guys and getting to know the stuff regarding the overhead component, is awesome for us as we're advising our clients, because Bill, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but as we're talking to clients, we see the disability insurance, premiums and costs going out, but we really never ask the doctor, like, hey, what is it? What is in this policy? And that's where we can start adding value to our clients. Like, hey, you guys, like you said, Bill, dust this policy off a little bit, maybe see what's in it still, to see if it's going to be the bang for your buck.
And Jared, you and I look at numbers, and we see here $200 or $300 a month for that kind of peace of mind. And I don't know exactly what the overhead component is, but as a percent of your top line collections for a good, healthy practice, I mean, that's, you don't even think twice about that. You take care of it, you get the right stuff, you have that peace of mind, you don't worry about it. It's not a distraction. You can just move forward. So to me, that feels like such a no-brainer, is to dial it in, get what you need, get it right, get the right team behind you, and just not think about it. Don't worry about it until some unfortunate accident happens. Then you can do exactly like Tyler said, and you can have that peace of mind, and your life's going to be a lot better because you made a good decision early on. So to us, that feels like a very simple decision, Jared.
Yeah. And when we're talking with our clients, a lot of times, I would say most of the time, not always by any means, but you're looking at a profit and loss statement and seeing the expenditures go out. And most of the time, if it's below what we would like it to be, that, hey, right, you're doing a great job. But in this case, maybe if it's low, you're like, whoa, that's a really low amount that you're paying. We need to look at that to make sure you guys get with these guys to make sure that you're getting a very cheap premium, but maybe you're not getting much for that amount.
Right.
So that's something we can really start talking to our clients about. So guys, do this. We like to kind of end on, and we'll give you contact info, kind of end on one question. And this is the Dental Momentum podcast, but think about, like, what is one thing you could tell our listeners out there really what they should be doing in their practice right now to really start gaining momentum in that practice.
You want that, Jim? Or I'll take it.
Go ahead.
So, one thing I'll say is you didn't really ask the question, but I'm going to answer my own question, which is,
Love it.
It's going to be okay. Dentistry, we've always heard the word dentistry is recession proof. We've heard that. Some of us never really lived through it and really knew what that actually meant. And in March and April, I think everybody was worried, like, what the heck's going to happen here? Everything's shutting down. And what we've seen with our doctors across the country, and I assume you're seeing the same thing, they're busier than ever, and the dentistry that wasn't done in March and April and maybe May, it's just getting done a little bit later. And the demand doesn't just go away. So for all the naysayers out there, they talked about the momentum. I think sometimes we all just need a cheerleader on our side saying everything's going to be all right. And sometimes they just don't hear that because who they're talking to are people that want to bring them down. Misery loves company. If anybody's, negative out there, it makes them feel a little bit better if they can take somebody that's not so negative, bring them down to their level and bum them out too. Yeah, I see that a lot. You see when you read it online too. So as it relates to momentum, I think I'm here just to say that we have a big sample size, lots of people, and everything's going to be good. And I think I'll end with that.
And I would say, now that I've had a chance to think about it, so thanks, Tyler, for going first. This is very cliche, but it's just so true. And it's surround yourself with good people. Have a great accountant like the two of you. Have folks like me and Tyler. Let us take care of that part of things, and you do what you're really great at, and be the best dentist you can be. Learn procedures that you are passionate about, that you're good at, that can help your patients. And we'll take care of the rest for you. Give you peace of mind. All that.
I think those two almost mirror each other. Surround yourself with the right people who speak, life into you and can help you and help guide you along your way. And I think it will be okay. Well said, guys. Both of you.
It's all up here. Like presenting dentistry, there's a difference between these, the dentists that have different production levels. You can give them the same opportunity, have different results. And I think it's all up here. If they're all negative about it, their patients might be too. It might be osmosis of no wonder they're not accepting treatment. You're not that passionate about it. You're not getting them excited about it. Well, how do you expect them to be? So
no, that is well said, guys. So do this if you don't mind. Tell the listeners out there how they can get in touch with you.
Email would be best. I'll spell it. It's my name, Tyler, Tyler .DeStefano, GESTEFANO @ddsteam.net.
And same for me, James, JAMES .Kachmar, KACHMAR @ddsteam.net.
Yeah, no, we'll put your contact info there in the show notes, your website as well. But guys, we appreciate you coming on. Again, as you can see, I've learned a lot. I mean, before the first time meeting you guys, I've learned a ton regarding disability insurance. And I always thought it was kind of like you had it or you didn't, but you got to really look at what you have, in place and see if you need to improve upon that. So guys, if you're listening out there today, I mean, and you're worried or maybe you haven't looked at that policy in a long time, reach out to these guys. They're a wealth of knowledge and they dive deep in dentistry on disability, and they can definitely help you out. So guys, I appreciate you guys listening today. Like we say, always go out there, SSR, subscribe to the podcast, share it with somebody who think you would benefit from listening to this. Give us a rating, leave a review. And as always, we're here to help, guys. Appreciate you listening today. We'll see you guys. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.